I just spent 12 months living and working as a musician in LA, which is a crazy thing to say. And I culminated that year by releasing a full album. And I couldn't have done that without returning home. In fact, I'm home right now, where I recorded every song with this cheap MIDI keyboard my sister used to practice on, with a $30 guitar I got at a garage sale, and this half-broken interface. Now, I have a whole video breaking down how I was able to produce an entire album for free, but today I want to talk about the philosophical side, because the truth is, when I was home, I was less stressed, more productive, and was in one of the best creative flow states of my life, where I felt like everything I was doing was successful, was helping to create this beautiful work of art. So I want to break down these lessons that I took away of the importance of being home, of feeling safe and comfortable and balancing mental health and music. And yeah, I just want to share some thoughts of that with you. So let's get into it. So like I said, I came home in the month of August and I wasn't actually intending to release an album. In the back of my mind, I always wanted to cap off my year in LA by releasing an album, but I didn't think it would actually be possible due to the amount of work I was putting into releasing unrelated singles, into gigging all the time. But it was always nagging at me. I'm like, that would be really nice though. And so in August, I came home and was just kind of messing around for the sake of messing around. I already had a lot of songs and the rough idea of what an album could be, but I wasn't really sure production-wise where I was headed with it. But I had no set of goals. I was perfectly content to watch TV, to read, to go for a hike. And if I did do anything musical that day, then that was a win. And when I was home, I just kind of figured out a formula. I had this keyboard, like I mentioned, that I wasn't used to having. Usually when I'm playing piano chords and stuff, I'm doing it on my laptop keyboard, which is very small, very confining, but here I was able to fully spread out. And through that, I was able to make a lot fuller arrangements, I found, because I could play the bass note on piano, I could play the full chord on piano. I would then track the guitar, multiple times. And basically through this space, kind of out of my usual producing zone at my house in LA, I kind of found a new formula, something I hadn't tried before, that was really easy to replicate across songs and just create an instantly more full mix. And I found that I was basically able to make an instrumental a day by basically laying down all the chords on piano, doing it on guitar, then adding a bunch of guitar fills, then adding in the atmospheric stuff, adding in some software instruments. And just like that, I'm like, wait, this is coming together. I could totally make an album. All I have to do is record a bunch of vocals when I get back to LA. And at the time, I also had a radio show booked and I was reached out to by Hotel Cafe, and I was like, wait, what if I time this album to do a release party at Hotel Cafe? What if I get on the radio and I announce my album and I have CDs for sale and I can be all of these things that I sort of had in the works were all coming together and it was all working together as one, and it just felt like this was the right thing. I know if I put my mind to this and really work on it, I can do this. So over the 2 weeks of being home, I basically did an instrumental every day. I even wrote some new songs. I produced some songs that I still haven't released and I'm considering releasing. And it was just an incredible creative flow state that I hadn't really experienced before. At home, my priorities are different. I'm not rushing off to gigs and I don't have a set of defined things that I need to get done each day. I'm also in a space of total comfort where I'm privileged enough to have basically all of my needs met. When I'm home, I'm not paying rent. The fridge is stocked. My mom is cooking food for me. I'm very lucky to have these things. And when I'm home, there's a lot of general stress, the stress of your day-to-day life, of having to pay your bills, to make ends meet. That is sort of lifted off me when I'm home, I'm fortunate enough to say. And that has an effect on the creative process. When I first moved out to LA, especially those first few months, I was overwhelmed with the sense of if I'm not doing something actively to move my music forward, then I'm wasting time, I'm wasting money, and I was filled with this sense of dread and stress. When I'm home, again, a lot of that lifts off me. I think a lot of people are drawn to being a musician in part because of the freedom and flexibility it gives you. But what I've come to learn being a full-time musician is it can be more rigid and taxing than a 9-to-5 job, especially when you're just starting out and you're trying to carve a path and make a name for yourself. It's a really difficult thing to do, and there actually isn't a lot of space. You can't just go on vacation for forever or stop posting content. You got to be doing all of these things consistently to grow. And what I've learned was, I thought being a full-time musician would be very creatively freeing. But the truth is, when you're a full-time musician, you more or less need to be or have to be on some level creative 24/7. I think when people think of being a musician, they're like, oh, you can be creative all the time. But the truth is, it's really hard to be creative all the time. And I realize it's not necessarily the freedom to be creative all the time that I'm looking for. It's actually the freedom to create when I want to create. It's to be at a level of comfort and stability where you don't necessarily have to be doing music all the time, but doing it when you want to do it, when you feel those creative inspirations flowing within you. When I'm home, I also just feel a lot of inspiration from a creative and lyrical and songwriting standpoint. Home has always been a major theme in my songs, whether it's fed up with being home and wanting to get out of your small town, of trying to escape and move on to new things, or the feeling of coming back to a place of familiarity and comfort. In fact, the very first thing I ever released as a musical project was an EP called Home Again. And that happened when I came home from my first full year at college. And after that taste of independence, of freedom, it felt suffocating to be back home in my childhood bedroom. And I used that to write my first songs and release my first songs. And now when I come home, it's a bit different. I don't necessarily see it as suffocating. I see it as a luxury, and I'm just happy to be home, to be with my parents, spending time with my family. Because as I grow older, you realize time moves fast, time is short, and you want to cherish and hold on to the things you love, and you want to be surrounded by the people you. So now when I come home, I feel a sense of love and acceptance. And that is something that's very freeing and allows me to be creative, and also inspires a lot of the songwriting now. As I've grown up and gotten to travel and experience new things, I've also had the privilege of calling other places home. Because what I've come to learn is home isn't just the place you were born or where you grew up. It's also the homes that you make for yourself and the people that you surround yourself with. Over the years, I've gotten to live and work in Oregon, in Mammoth Lakes, California. I even lived in Spain for a brief few months in college, and all of those places are places that I now call home and that I now draw inspiration from, because there's certain nostalgia attached to them, certain feelings, emotions, and stories that are tied to these places. And when you as a songwriter are looking for inspiration, I encourage you to think about these places in your life that you have touched or been touched by. What were the specific tangible memories you have? What did it smell like? What did it feel like? What did it taste like? And what do you remember most? Who did you meet there? And just telling stories inspired by that. Or even if it's a song not necessarily about a certain place or time, to just pull specific tangible memories and feelings and emotions and put them into a song. And I think as a songwriter, it's immensely helpful for grounding your work. If you're trying to put a piece of yourself into the song, what better place than to describe your upbringing, your home, where you come from, who you are, what makes you what you are. Another thing I found, that even if you think your songs are super specific and that nobody will relate, trust me, there's always someone who will relate to your music. Even if not directly to the things you're saying, the emotions or the feelings or the memories can strike a chord within someone. So don't be afraid about being hyper-specific or being too niche. If anything, I think it's a benefit, and it helps you connect on a deeper level with more audience members. Sorry, I totally forgot to kind of record an outro, but thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed.